In the sweltering heat of Texas, 1925, Audie Murphy was born into poverty. The sixth of 12 children, he grew up in the vast, dusty cotton fields of Hunt County. His father, a struggling sharecropper, abandoned the family when Audie was young, leaving his mother to fend for 12 children alone. Life was a harsh teacher. By the age of 16, Murphy had witnessed the death of his mother from pneumonia. Suddenly, the responsibility of survival fell squarely on his small shoulders. No one could afford to care for him, yet he refused to be weak. Hunger, hardship, and relentless labor hardened the boy into someone extraordinary, someone who would soon walk into history. Audie's childhood was defined by necessity. He hunted rabbits and squirrels to feed his siblings, spending long hours in the fields with only his .22 caliber rifle and his wits. His aim was flawless, his patience endless. He learned to move silently, to anticipate the behaviors of both animals and people. By 16, he had become a master of survival, his body lean, his reflexes honed, and his mind sharp with instinct. This was no ordinary boy. He was a hunter born of desperation. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the war suddenly became personal. The Army offered food, a regular paycheck, and a way to protect his country. Audie wanted in, but the recruiters had other ideas. At barely 5'5", and weighing just 110 pounds, he looked more like a child than a soldier. The Navy rejected him immediately. The paratroopers laughed at his size. But Audie's determination would not be denied. He forged a birth certificate claiming he was 18, convincing an Army recruiter to enlist him. Audie Murphy was now part of the United States Army, though few realized what they had just recruited. He arrived at basic training small, quiet, and underestimated. Drill sergeants called him baby and mocked his size. Fellow recruits doubted him. Yet every day in the fields of Camp Walters, Texas, his skill with weapons and ability to endure physical hardship began to turn heads. Where others relied on brute force, Audie relied on precision, patience, and instinct, tools that would one day allow him to face overwhelming odds. By the time Murphy finished training, he had become more than a farm boy. He was a soldier in the making, a living testament to resilience. The hardships of his youth, the endless hunger, the loneliness, the constant battle to survive, had forged a mind and body capable of feats few could imagine. Audie Murphy's journey from a cotton field in Texas to the battlefields of Europe would be defined by courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable will. And soon the world would witness the moment when this small, determined boy faced 250 German soldiers with nothing but a burning tank and his own courage, and emerged victorious. When Audie Murphy first arrived at Camp Walters, Texas, he was underestimated. At just 16, he was smaller than most of the men around him, and drill sergeants treated him like a mascot. They called him baby and subjected him to relentless ridicule. But under that small frame was a mind as sharp as any combat veteran's, and reflexes honed by years of hunting to feed his family. Where others saw weakness, Audie saw opportunity. Every lesson drilled into him by hunger and survival now translated into military skill. Basic training was brutal, but Murphy adapted quickly. He learned to move silently across terrain, to analyze situations with a hunter's eye, and to shoot with deadly precision. His fellow soldiers marveled at his aim. He could drop a target at long distances with a rifle in ways that seasoned men struggled to do. The mockery faded as instructors began to notice his talent. Audie was no longer the baby. He was a soldier whose size was irrelevant in the face of skill and determination. By mid-1942, Murphy was sent to active duty in Europe. His small stature became an advantage rather than a hindrance. He could crawl through trenches unnoticed, hide in the shadows, and strike with precision where larger soldiers might be detected. In Sicily, he faced his first taste of real combat. His company was pinned down by German machine guns, a situation that could have easily spelled disaster. While others waited for orders or reinforcements, Audie acted. He maneuvered around the enemy position alone, using grenades and quick thinking to neutralize the threat. It was a defining moment. The young farm boy had become a one-man force, capable of extraordinary action under pressure. In the mountains of Italy, Audie Murphy's reputation grew. Fellow soldiers began to rely on him for reconnaissance, sniper work, and dangerous missions where the stakes were life and death. He was awarded the Bronze Star for bravery, but the medal only hinted at what he had accomplished. He fought not with anger or vengeance, but with a cold, calculated focus. Every action was deliberate, every shot precise. Murphy had become a predator, honed by years of survival in Texas, and now unleashed on the battlefield. By the time he was sent to France, Murphy was no longer just a soldier. He was a symbol of resilience. Small in stature but immense in impact, he carried the weight of his company's survival on his shoulders. The enemy underestimated him repeatedly, and that would soon be their fatal mistake. For Audie Murphy, the war was never just about glory. It was about protecting his fellow soldiers, accomplishing the mission, and surviving against impossible odds. Each battle tested him further, each encounter sharpened his instincts, and each victory reinforced what had been true since his youth, that courage, intelligence, and determination could outmatch brute force every time. By the fall of 1944, Murphy faced a challenge unlike any before, a German company of 250 men, supported by 6 tanks. What happened next would cement his place in history, proving that the small farm boy from Texas could indeed outsmart an entire enemy force. January 26, 1945, dawned gray and bitterly cold. Company B, part of the 15th Infantry Regiment, was stretched thin along the edge of Holt's Forest in France. In front of them lay a mile of frozen open ground, and beyond that, a determined German force. 250 infantrymen clad in white snow camouflage, 6 tanks, and a barrage of artillery. Most soldiers would have considered it a hopeless situation, but Audie Murphy, now a seasoned and decorated sergeant, saw the problem, and he saw the solution. Murphy's company had already suffered heavy losses in the days leading up to this battle. Officers were dead or incapacitated, and morale teetered on the edge. Yet he did not hesitate. Assessing the terrain, he positioned his remaining men in a way that maximized their defensive potential, placing the 2 M10 tank destroyers as the last line of defense. Every step was calculated, every position chosen to give his men even the slimmest chance of survival. When the German artillery barrage began, the frozen ground shuddered under exploding shells. Trees splintered, snow flew in clouds of ice and dirt, and the men of Company B huddled in foxholes, bracing for the assault. The M10s fired, but the enemy tanks and infantry pressed forward relentlessly. By 2:20 p.m., both tank destroyers were disabled. The first hit caught one in the turret, engulfing it in flames, while the other slid into a ditch, its crew forced to retreat. At that moment, the situation reached a breaking point. Without heavy weapons, the company faced imminent annihilation. It was here that Murphy made a decision that would become legendary. Rather than retreat with his men, he ran forward under fire toward the burning M10 tank destroyer. Black smoke poured from its hull, obscuring him from enemy sight. But the danger was immense. Inside lay hundreds of rounds of ammunition and hundreds of gallons of fuel, ready to detonate at any moment. Without hesitation, Murphy climbed onto the tank and took control of its .50 caliber machine gun. From that exposed position, he became a one-man army. German soldiers advancing across the snow were cut down with precision, while Murphy simultaneously used a field telephone to call in artillery strikes. Each movement was deliberate, each burst of fire perfectly aimed. For an hour, this 19-year-old 110-pound farm boy held the line against overwhelming odds. German tanks and infantry, trained and elite, found themselves trapped, unable to advance without suffering devastating losses. Private Anthony Abramsky recalled watching in awe. He was scary calm, standing on that burning tank, firing at enemies 10 yards away, calling in artillery. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. He was everywhere and nowhere at once. By the end of the hour, Murphy had killed or wounded roughly 50 enemy soldiers and stopped a combined assault that could have annihilated his company. When he finally climbed down, the burning tank exploded behind him, a final dramatic punctuation to his heroic stand. Murphy's actions at Holt's Forest were more than tactical brilliance. They were the embodiment of his life's training. A boy who had hunted rabbits to feed his family now hunted an entire army with the same deadly focus. It was audacity, intelligence, and courage fused into a single act, an act that would secure his name in history and demonstrate that heroism often comes from the most unexpected places. After the harrowing stand at Holt's Forest, Audie Murphy's bravery became the stuff of legend. News of a single soldier holding off an entire German company, 250 troops and 6 tanks, spread rapidly through the U.S. Army Command. Yet Murphy himself remained quiet, almost detached. To him, it was simply the job, protecting his men, ensuring they survived. He had no thought of fame, only of duty. By October 14, 1944, the boy who was once rejected for being too small had officially become Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy. His promotion reflected not just his heroism at Holt's Forest, but a career defined by extraordinary acts of courage. The Medal of Honor, the highest military award in the United States, was awarded to Murphy on June 2, 1945, in a formal ceremony near Salzburg, Austria, by Lieutenant General Alexander Patch. The citation praised him for extraordinary gallantry, emphasizing that he had single-handedly stopped a German assault for an hour while exposed to deadly fire from multiple directions. Yet the medal only told part of the story. Murphy's actions were the culmination of years of preparation, skill, and survival instinct. From a farm boy hunting rabbits in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas, to a 19-year-old commanding artillery and machine gun fire against elite German forces, Murphy's journey was extraordinary. Every life he saved during that battle was a testament to the lethal precision and mental resilience he had developed long before joining the Army. Despite these accolades, Murphy's return to civilian life was far from easy. Hollywood welcomed him, casting him in over 40 films, including his autobiography adaptation To Hell and Back, where he played himself. Parades, magazine covers, and public acclaim followed, portraying the classic rags-to-riches hero story. But beneath the surface, Murphy struggled with what would later be recognized as severe post-traumatic stress disorder. The man who climbed a burning tank to save his comrades found himself haunted by memories of the friends he could not save, by relentless nightmares, and by insomnia. His first marriage ended under the strain of this invisible war. Yet in 1951 he found Pamela Archer, who would become not only his wife but a stabilizing force in his life. Pamela witnessed Murphy's inner battles and became his anchor, helping him navigate a world that seemed ordinary to everyone else, but remained profoundly challenging for a war hero with unseen scars. Together they raised 2 sons, and Pamela became a quiet, relentless advocate for veterans, carrying forward a legacy of care and protection that mirrored Murphy's battlefield ingenuity. Audie Murphy's legacy is twofold: heroism in battle and the human struggle that follows. His courage saved lives on frozen fields in France, while his personal struggles illuminated the ongoing costs of war. The Medal of Honor acknowledged one tangible victory, the vanquishing of an enemy force against impossible odds. But the aftermath, the PTSD, and the advocacy work that followed demonstrated that the battles of war extend far beyond the battlefield. Murphy's story, both in action and in consequence, exemplifies the full measure of bravery, not just the courage to face enemy fire, but the courage to survive its aftermath and continue fighting for others. After the war, Audie Murphy returned to a world that could never fully understand what he had endured. The small farm boy who had faced death countless times on the European front now faced an equally daunting challenge: living in peace. Public adulation followed him everywhere: Hollywood offers, magazine covers, parades. But inside, Murphy wrestled with memories that refused to fade. Sleep eluded him, nightmares haunted him, and he remained hypervigilant, a soldier trapped in civilian life. The transition from battlefield hero to civilian man was not easy. Murphy's first marriage to actress Wanda Hendricks lasted only 16 months, undone by the invisible scars of war. The constant reminders of the friends he had lost and the enemies he had faced created a tension he could not release. Even in the comfort of wealth and fame, he remained haunted, proving that the true cost of heroism often extends far beyond the battlefield. In 1951, Murphy met Pamela Archer, a 31-year-old former airline stewardess, who would become his second wife and the anchor of his turbulent life. Unlike many who were dazzled by his fame, Pamela saw the man behind the medals, The hero, yes, but also the haunted survivor. She understood his PTSD before it was even widely recognized and stood beside him through decades of struggle. Their partnership became a unique form of teamwork, mirroring the battlefield. She was his field modification, his support system, the stabilizing force in a life so often dictated by chaos. Pamela Murphy became a dedicated advocate for veterans, taking her own mission seriously. After Audie's death in 1971 in a tragic plane crash in Virginia, she carried forward his legacy by working at the VA hospital in Los Angeles. For 35 years, she fought tirelessly to ensure veterans received the care they deserved, from navigating bureaucracy to locating lost benefits. In many ways, her work mirrored Audie's battlefield strategies, precise, calculated, and unyielding. Just as he had saved lives with courage and ingenuity, Pamela saved lives with determination and compassion. Audie Murphy's death at the age of 45 was a poignant reminder that even the greatest heroes are mortal. But his story does not end with his passing. His legacy is embedded in military history, Hollywood history, and most importantly, in the lives of those he inspired. The Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, stands as a testament to his service and the work of Pamela Murphy, the woman who carried forward his mission. Their combined legacy reminds us that heroism is not only about acts of valor in war, but also about resilience, care, and the relentless pursuit of justice for others. Audie Murphy's life embodies both extremes: extraordinary battlefield courage and the quiet, persistent struggle with trauma afterward. He is remembered as the soldier who stopped an entire German company alone, but he is also a symbol of what it means to endure the invisible battles long after the guns fall silent. His story continues to inspire veterans, historians, and civilians alike, a testament to the extraordinary human spirit, forged in adversity, and tempered by both bravery and vulnerability. Audie Murphy was not just a soldier. He was a master of improvisation, turning every disadvantage into a lethal advantage. On the battlefield, his ingenuity was often the difference between life and death, not just for himself, but for his entire unit. Murphy's small stature, once considered a weakness, became a key asset. His ability to move silently, use terrain to his advantage, and approach enemies unseen made him a nightmare for German soldiers. In Sicily, Murphy's rural upbringing in the cotton fields of Texas had already taught him the principles of stalking, patience, and precision. The same hunter's instincts that allowed him to feed his family at age 16 became critical tools in combat. He understood how to read the battlefield like a landscape of opportunity, using cover, elevation, and shadows to control encounters. Near Palermo, when pinned by a German machine gun, he didn't retreat as doctrine demanded. Instead, he circled the enemy alone, using grenades and the enemy's own weapons to dismantle their position. This was not reckless bravery, it was calculated action. Every move was measured, every risk assessed. Murphy's legendary stand in France, where he climbed atop a burning M10 tank destroyer, illustrates his ability to innovate under pressure. When conventional defenses failed and his unit's firepower was neutralized, he transformed a near-dead tank into a strategic weapon. The thick black smoke provided concealment, while the mounted .50 caliber Browning became a precision instrument. Simultaneously, Murphy used a field telephone to call artillery strikes on German positions. This coordination of direct and indirect fire was revolutionary for a single soldier and demonstrated his understanding of combined arms warfare on a micro scale. Beyond his physical tactics, Murphy's psychological warfare was equally effective. German infantrymen, trained as elite mountain troops, found themselves facing an invisible enemy. The cloud of smoke hiding a lone figure raining precise gunfire broke their cohesion and morale. Murphy's calm under fire, his ability to make decisions while bullets and shells tore past him, amplified the effectiveness of every action. It was the hunter's mindset, applied to modern warfare. Observe, calculate, eliminate. Murphy also mastered small unit leadership in combat. His battlefield decisions emphasized initiative over rigid adherence to orders. When officers were killed or incapacitated, he became the de facto commander, assessing the situation and directing his men in real time. By combining leadership with personal combat prowess, He multiplied the effectiveness of his platoon, turning desperation into tactical advantage. Ultimately, Audie Murphy's innovations were born from necessity, experience, and instinct. The combination of his marksmanship, battlefield creativity, and fearless leadership made him one of the most effective soldiers of World War II. He demonstrated that heroism is not only a product of courage, but also of adaptability, intelligence, and the ability to see solutions where others see only danger. The lessons from his tactics are studied not just as historical anecdotes, but as timeless principles of strategy and human resilience. The battlefield left scars that no medal could heal. Audie Murphy survived almost every conceivable horror of World War II, yet the war did not end when the guns fell silent. While the world celebrated him as a hero, the young farm boy who single-handedly stopped an enemy assault, Murphy faced a different, invisible enemy, the trauma of combat. For Murphy, the relentless exposure to death, destruction, and the burden of responsibility for his men's lives manifested as what was then called battle fatigue, now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Murphy's struggle began immediately after combat. The young soldier who had climbed atop a burning tank, exposing himself to enemy fire with calm precision, became consumed by fear and insomnia when away from the battlefield. Darkness, once a neutral absence of light, became a trigger, evoking memories of night patrols and ambushes. He could not sleep in a normal bedroom and eventually moved to a garage where lights remained on throughout the night. Even the smallest sounds would provoke panic, as if the battlefield had followed him home. Friends and family would notice sudden outbursts and anxiety, signs of a man still fighting a war that no longer had a front line. The emotional toll was compounded by survivor's guilt. Murphy had witnessed countless friends and comrades die around him, while he survived wounds and near-death experiences again and again. Each life lost was a reminder of his own vulnerability, and each survival intensified the pressure of expectation placed upon him. The very traits that made him a war hero, courage, decisiveness, and an unyielding drive, now forced him to relive trauma in isolation. His achievements on the battlefield became a double-edged sword, a source of fame and pride, but also a reminder of the lives he could not save. Murphy's post-war years were marked by persistent nightmares, hypervigilance, and emotional detachment. These symptoms strained personal relationships and left him vulnerable to isolation and despair. Even as he became a Hollywood actor, starring in over 40 films including To Hell and Back, the public only saw the persona of the invincible war hero. Behind closed doors, Murphy grappled with fear, anxiety, and relentless flashbacks. Ordinary life presented challenges that were trivial in comparison to the horrors he had endured on the battlefield. Yet psychologically, these challenges were insurmountable without support. Pamela Murphy, who later became his wife, played a critical role in helping him navigate this invisible war. She recognized the duality within him, the courageous soldier and the haunted survivor. Over 2 decades, she became his anchor, his stabilizing force, helping him cope with PTSD while supporting his mission to advocate for fellow veterans. Through her unwavering presence, Murphy gradually channeled his experiences into purpose, transforming personal pain into public advocacy for mental health and veterans' support. Audie Murphy's story underscores the profound human cost of war. His heroism was not limited to the battlefield. It extended into his struggle to survive emotionally and psychologically after combat. The medals, parades, and accolades cannot fully capture the price he paid. Yet in confronting these hidden wounds, Murphy became more than a war hero. He became a symbol of resilience, demonstrating that the battle for survival does not end with victory on the field. It continues in the quiet, private struggle to reclaim humanity after the horrors of war. When Audie Murphy passed away in 1971, the world mourned a hero. Newspapers, magazines, and television networks paid tribute to the man who had stopped an army, a soldier whose bravery on the battlefield had become legendary. Yet for Pamela Murphy, the loss was profoundly personal. She had spent 2 decades beside a man haunted by invisible wounds, a man who had fought countless battles long after the guns had fallen silent. His death was not just the end of a life. It was the closing of a chapter in a war that had never truly ended for either of them. Pamela Murphy's response to grief was not to retreat into sorrow. But to continue the mission they had started together, she stepped into a world unprepared for the depth of trauma facing returning veterans. The Veterans Affairs system was bureaucratic, slow, and often indifferent. Soldiers suffering from PTSD, chronic pain, and the lingering effects of war were frequently dismissed, their struggles minimized or ignored. Pamela recognized the system's fatal flaw and resolved to become the fix. What her husband had done with extraordinary bravery on the battlefield, she would do in the quiet corridors of hospitals and offices. Taking a modest position at the Sepulveda Veterans Affairs Hospital in Los Angeles, Pamela Murphy became a tireless advocate. She did not rely on her name or fame. She approached every case with meticulous care, treating each veteran as if they were a comrade in arms, deserving of respect, understanding, and justice. Homeless veterans, decorated officers, and those lost in the bureaucracy of the VA alike received her full attention. She became a one-woman army, navigating red tape, tracking down lost benefits, and demanding that the neglected be heard. Her efforts were not motivated by recognition or reward. They were driven by the principles she had shared with her husband: service, duty, and unwavering loyalty to those who had served. Pamela's work extended beyond paperwork. She became a counselor, a mentor, and a protector. Veterans confided in her, sharing stories they could not tell to anyone else. She bore witness to their suffering and took action, transforming frustration into tangible results. Benefits were restored, appointments secured, and in countless cases, hope renewed. Through her dedication, she saved lives in ways that statistics and medals could never quantify. Pamela understood that advocacy required both persistence and empathy, and she wielded both with precision. For 35 years, Pamela Murphy continued this mission, retiring only in 2007 at the age of 87. Her legacy is inseparable from Audie's, where he had confronted external enemies with courage and ingenuity. She confronted systemic failures with resolve and compassion. The Audie L. Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, named in his honor, stands as a testament to his heroism, but Pamela's work served as a living memorial. She carried forward the principles that had guided him, ensuring that no veteran was abandoned, no problem ignored. Pamela's story illuminates an often overlooked aspect of heroism: the courage to face invisible battles, the tenacity to advocate in the face of indifference, and the resilience to transform personal loss into enduring service. While the world remembered Audie Murphy for his exploits on frozen fields and burning tanks, Pamela Murphy's quiet, steadfast dedication ensured that his legacy would live on in the lives of those he had fought to protect. Together, their story is a testament to courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of duty beyond the battlefield.